Hello, I am Alex Escarino, and I'm presenting my final project for EDT 6040, Section 14E. For this project, what I worked on was I wanted to improve my class website. As you can see, just based on the image on the screen, it is a very cluttered looking just based on the two images. I have a lot of links on the side of the nav bar, and as we're focusing on visual literacy, I wanted students to be able to apply those skills when navigating my website. One issue that I had already was the fact that, I used different colors to separate the different concepts, which in theory is a great idea, but it didn't seem to really work on practice. So this is my homepage. This is my useful links, which provided visual media for the students. And again, if you could see, I have a very teal background and a lighter green to help separate the different ideas. This is the second part of that page to show all my useful links that I have. Learn to teach students how to write what are called my articles of the week and an objective summary, which were the big three that students need to know how to do. This is a page for the resources. As you can see, the links here are very small, and I have here the requirements for the article of the week and an example of how to do one. Classwork pages for all of mine for 1, 2, 4, 5, and 9, it is all empty. I had a calendar, which really didn't do much because it wasn't tied to Google Classroom. And then my XBlock page, again, very cluttered, very had a lot of different focuses, and that's not the way a website should be set up. One of the things that I want to state before I get going is that I am not a very visually talented person. I'm using the limited skill set that I have. I am in 7th grade English language arts teacher, which means most of the way that I express myself typically goes through words and writing. So for this was a very challenging project for me because I had to get out of my comfort zone and try to express my ideas in a visual medium. So to start off, the improvements that I improved my homepage. I created a visual literacy page, my literary criticism page, which is about my literary criticism unit, which is theme and main idea, and my argument unit page. The big thing that I added when going through this project is I wanted to create a space for resources on visual literacy. I think that going through this course, I completely agree that having the visual literacy skill set is incredibly important, especially because we're in a digital age. It's all a part of 21st century learning that students need to have resources and reliable resources at that to be able to go and seek help with visual literacy. I know that I haven't actually used the terms visual literacy in my classroom, but I am very pro, using different types of text like paintings and films, even like audio and songs and like an artist's interpretation of a poem. All in my classroom, it's just good practice with basic differentiation. But I think students need to hone in on the skills of visual literacy. So that's one of the first places I started. And then for literary criticism argument unit, I started off with 2 of the units that I do in the beginning of my school year. This, again, I want to put a space where there are resources and a place students can go and check to, trigger those ideas of the learning they learn in my classroom and start associating it with outside of the classroom when they're seeking help, just basically on definitions or on key concepts, which sometimes students have a problem taking out of the classroom. And I want them to have a resource where they can use that at their will. So the first thing that I wanted to look at was just a navigation bar. If you looked at the beginning of my presentation, it was very cluttered, had a lot of different links. One of the things that Moline stated is that you need to have, your main menu and a drop-down menu that appears as a list, and it's my mistake. The main menu is the typical information on the website and what it's about, what's there, and it's typically in a list form, which you see here. I wanted to make it smaller, where it focuses more on the units in class, and say white on a teal background. This is a lot more compressed. This is also zoomed in image of the nav bar, but it really gives students a more coherent focus of what's going on and different topics that we're going to go through in class. So this is my new homepage. One of the things that I created, I wanted to start using the concepts and the tools and the resources to start building in class. The big thing that I enjoyed was the Animoto video. I think that it's a great introduction to visual literacy for students, where you have the quick words associating with me, and then an image that I kind of relate to. If you play and go through it, it goes through just different aspects of myself. Well, for instance, the image that you can see is Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. I'm a huge comic book fan. Those are two of my favorite heroes, and the caption being nerdy, comic book loving, facial hair bro, which is a joke if you understand like the facial hair bro. I do have a goatee, and my students are amused when I bring this up and show it to them. And this is also a tool that I'll be using at the beginning of my school year next year to have students introduce themselves to me and apply visual literacy skills. And this will be one of the starting activities for us to understand what is the importance of visual literacy and how do we use it. And then I created a quick memo to my students just about what my expectations are and how I am. I think it's a good blend between visual and text literacy, where you have the images popping up and students can draw inferences about their teacher, as well as me point blank saying, this is what I expect of you, and we both can do this together, and we're going to have challenges, but we can meet them head on. The other big thing is the rubric I made, and I will show you guys this later, is the purpose of this really is just to show the blend between visual and text learning. I think this does a really good job of condensing the two versus what I originally had, which was just a bunch of words and images associated with me. I think this is a lot simpler and a lot easier for students to understand. Next, we have my visual literacy page. Again, one of the purposes that I wanted to go through is provide a resource for students to find this information on visual literacy that they can go back and reference at any point in time. So one of the first things I found was just a video that helps define visual literacy, and it goes through using visuals, so it's like requiring them to use those skills that they may not realize they have, and it goes through and defines different types of visual literacy in different media. It'll go through email, like video, web, all that jazz. Then one of the sources that I found was something called the 4 Ws, which helps students jot down the ideas of visual literacy, which asks them some questions like, what do you see? And in a different way, it's phrasing, what do I observe? What else? What does it remind me of? And what's another image that it reminds me of a personal experience? What's the author's purpose? Is it to analyze, persuade, express, document, entertain? And then so what? So what's the purpose of this? What's the big significance? And then I found 2 links of, one is to think aloud and it models how you use visual literacy. And so this teacher goes through a story and he starts explaining what he sees. And it's one, and with the image tied into it. And then the next one is a student doing the same process. And I think it really can help students, see both sides of the picture. Like, okay, here's what I expect, and here's where you may be. So some of the improvements that I saw with this page is just adding a visual literacy page. That's the second link on my website. Really will help students focus on what the task at hand is. And if, I would hope that they go home and be like, hey, mom and dad, Mr. Escarino showed me this really cool video on visual literacy. I want you guys to see it. So then go home and have a discussion on it. I believe that it really does assist students with this concept. And the downfall is it really does only use one type of literacy, that being visual literacy. And the great resource that, again, I provided is the 4 Ws chart. Next, we'll turn to my literary criticism unit. I think this is very basic but very powerful. In this page, I provided a YouTube video where it's called Like a Girl, and it's going through, asking kids like run like a girl, throw like a girl. And one of the things that we study is this thing called gender theory. And with that, it helps students understand that, saying something's like a girl is meant as a very derogatory remark. And then you have the kids realize that, there's nothing wrong with being a girl, that, if you're a girl and you hit like a girl and you run like a girl, it's because you're a girl. And there's really no difference between doing that as a girl and doing that as a boy. So that's one of the concepts that I provided. And then again, I provided the 4 W sheet here. And then on the other theory, we go through social economic, which is essentially just Marxism, and how money and value equates to power. And I gave them the U.S. social class ladder. I think both these are really, really good resources because it tells the student what it is, and it's requiring them to use those visual literacy skills. But it's not exactly, it doesn't say, social economic theory is X, Y, and Z, which is what I originally would have done. It gives them 2 examples where you have the social class ladder, and yeah, it's more text-based, but it does have the visual of a ladder going up from the bottom with the underclass and then going all the way up to the elitists. And then you have this one, if I zoom in, which talks about the value of the dollar and how far it can go. So I think both of these resources here do a good job at promoting visual literacy and then being a resource, and point blank stating it. One of the questions that I had is, I'm using these colors to help divide the ideas, but to me, I don't think it really works. I think just having one solid background really is the way to go. But then again, I do like seeing the visual distinction between, okay, this is the ideas that relate with gender theory, and these are the ideas that relate with social economic theory. Finally, I have this argument unit page. Again, very simple. The only text you really see on the page is the image 1, image 2, image 3. This time I kept it all one color image. First off, this is a zoomed in image, so it doesn't look as empty on a computer, because with Google Sites it'll transition it and then re-image it due to the fact that it's going to give the best possible resolution on your screen. So one of the things that I gave is this idea of need another reason to go to a veterinarian, and then Superman with the God Milk and the Verizon versus AT&T coverage map. So the argument, I want students to understand that each of these three ads are doing something that's an argument. You have pathos with the pig and wanting them to go to a veterinarian. You have ethos, which if you're the Man of Steel, you'd probably be drinking a lot of milk. And then logos, because this is just pure facts that from Verizon they have a bigger coverage than AT&T. I think with these three images, I really do think that students will start associating these ideas with these images, which again is a form of visual literacy, and they're using those skills to help build a better understanding. With these three images, I did build a quick lesson around it where I have the students use a 4W chart, and I'll pull that up in a minute. And they'll jot down what are they seeing, what are they reminded of, followed up by I'm asking them which one of these images is using facts, which one of these images is using something called credibility, and which one of these images are asking you for your emotions. And I think this would be a good introductory lesson to the stages of rhetoric. So the first resource I wanted to show to you was the 4Ws page that I created, which I do have cited my source on my school website. What this does is it gives a prompt and then requires students to answer it. And it's a way to help students learn how to take notes on visual literacy or visual media. One of the things that I think that as teachers we need to do a better job at is showing students how to use the visual literacy skills. I think that sometimes, I know myself is included, I just expect them to know how to do it, but I never formally taught them, and then that's a step back that I have to take, which is no problem because it's also new learning for me to be able to incorporate this. As you can see, it's asking, what do you see? What does it remind you of? What is the artist's purpose? And so on. I think the term here, artist, is a very powerful one because all people who create visual media are artists. And I think for students to start associating visual with artists and the authors with writing, I think is a good correlation that they see. The next resource that I created was this intro to rhetoric and argument. So I have the rhetorical triangle of ethos, pathos, and logos and how they all work together. Again, I'm not the most visual person. I'm not the most visually creative person. So for me, having this here, I had the text set off to the side, but near the front. Top, the title of the document, bold. There's no serifs to guide the reading, but it does stand out. And then I color coordinated the text, and then the text of all the teacher writing is in one font, and then the text as students start writing. So here is a student example, are in different fonts, and I think for me personally, that helps to see what the students wrote versus what I intentionally had them write. And again, it goes through with that argument with the ethos, pathos, logos images from my website. Finally, I'd have them go through and then, okay, the vet image does it use a logic, credibility, or emotions, etc. for Superman image, and then Verizon image, and then I would headway into the last one. Credit logic is logos, credibility is ethos, and then emotions is your pathos.